Welcome to the Wilson Center's Global Europe program. We are fortunate to have with us today one of our stellar global fellows, Dr. Jack Watling, who is a land warfare specialist at the Royal United Services Institute in the United Kingdom. And Jack, I'd like to ask you a little bit about the latest situation on the ground in Ukraine. You were recently there. Talk to us about how you see the counteroffensive and what is next.
The Ukrainian counteroffensive that happened over the summer of 2023 has now culminated. The Ukrainians lack the material resources or the reserves to continue offensive operations, and therefore the Ukrainian military is now establishing a defensive posture.
Talk to us a little bit about how you see them planning for the next few months, because we are just at the very start of the year. What are the Russians doing as a counter to that, and how are the Ukrainians planning to work with that plan?
The Russian plan is very straightforward. They wish to break Ukraine's relationships with its international partners over the course of 2024, continue to apply military pressure to force Ukraine to expend the reserves of materiel equipment that it has left, so that they can start making battlefield gains in 2025 and force Ukraine's capitulation on Russian terms in 2026. Now, for the Ukrainians, they are in a very difficult position because they do not know how much materiel support they can expect to receive from their allies and when it is likely to arrive. Without that information, it's very difficult for them to plan on how they can go about preparing to disrupt or threaten that Russian plan. And so at the moment, the Ukrainians are digging in and trying to give themselves as much time as possible to get a solid answer to those questions. Once they understand how much materiel they can expect over the next year, then they can try and maximize the efficiency of their defense while rebuilding offensive combat power. But to do that effectively, it's going to take some time.
I know that we've seen some of our European allies trying to step up their assistance, whether bilaterally or as part of the EU's funding. But when it comes to really defense industrial production, to what degree can they do this? What's your assessment of the capabilities of our European partners to help Ukraine achieve the kind of equipment it needs in order to do the strategy that you've outlined?
So in fiscal terms, Europe has stepped up. European countries have not only pledged more money than the United States overall, but they have also made multi-year commitments. The problem is that Europe lacks the military industrial capacity to translate money into armaments quickly. And so lots of that money has gone into soft things like keeping the Ukrainian government functioning. It's now critical that Europe expends on expanding its industrial capacity so that it can shoulder the burden of supporting Ukraine through 2025. And those investments are being made. European capitals are realizing that irrespective of the political judgments made in the United States, the need to maintain deterrence in the Indo-Pacific is likely to see US resources shift east over the course of 2025, and therefore Europe is now investing. The problem is there is a lag between the investment and increased output. And until that increase in output starts to come through, Ukraine is critically dependent for artillery ammunition, battalion kits, and other critical material like air defense interceptors on the United States.
Tell us what we should watch in this year, in the coming months. What should we be on the lookout for in terms of changes in either Ukrainian or Russian strategy, or even a larger issue overall?
The thing that we need to pay laser-focused attention to is, firstly, whether Europe really is competently implementing those investments to enable it to expand production. And the requirements, the threshold for meeting Ukraine's requirements are definable and quite clear. So we can measure whether we're on track or not. We need to hold leaders accountable for whether they're achieving that. The other critical element is across NATO, are we seeing coherence in those investments so that as an alliance, you don't end up with huge amounts of 155 artillery ammunition but no capacity to produce replacement barrels, so that there's no guns eventually in order to be able to fire those rounds. Are we seeing balanced investment across the alliance? And that's not just critical for supporting Ukraine, it's also vital for NATO to be able to replenish its stocks and maintain a conventional deterrence against Russia beyond Ukraine, irrespective of the outcome in Ukraine. That's what we need to focus really carefully on. If we get that wrong, and there is an insufficient supply of materiel to the Ukrainian armed forces, what you will see is a sustained period where the Russians struggle to make progress because the Ukrainians will maintain a tenacious defense. But as simple availability of munitions starts to degrade, you will then see a non-linear degradation in Ukraine's defenses. The problem is there is a long gap between the cause of that and the effect, because the Ukrainians will hold on for some time even if we have decided that we are reducing our level of support. And so the decision to delay support not only undermines the Ukrainian ability to plan and to create a strategy, but it also means that we are baking in negative consequences that will last for months and will be felt most acutely in several months. It's really important that we understand that in order to provide the data, the material to provide a plan, to generate a plan, we need certainty, and that needs to be provided quickly.
Dr. Jack Watling, thank you so very much for your insight. We will watch exactly those things, and thank you very much for giving us the benefit of your experience. Thank you.
Always a pleasure to join the Wilson Center.